Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. This week's UFC 300. Without further ado, man, the pay-per-view we've been waiting on for a long time, going down this Saturday in Las Vegas. We got Jamal Hill coming back to defend what I think should be defending his light heavyweight strap against Alex Pereira, who's won it in the meantime. Battle of China here. Zhang Weili taking on Xiaonan, Gaethje, Holloway. Man, the list goes on and on. So many champions throughout this card. Don't want to waste too much time. Let you recap a little forgettable night for us both. Sort of on into some bad reads there. We'll jump into this great card.
Yeah, for being on the wrong side of a lot of these bets, for us not to lose a collective 1.5 units, I think that's a small win. It was a really funky card with some odd decisions and some weird outcomes. So yeah, a forgettable week for sure. We'll start off with your only straight bet of the night, and I think my only straight bet of the night as well. Germaine de Randamie. We beat the line movement. She was minus 105 by the time the fight came around. That looked good, but she looked awful, man. Couldn't get off her back off the mat, and she certainly looked her age. And I think that her time is coming past. One of your better reads of the night, the under 2.5 on Bahamondes Yagos. You knew it was a mismatch. Bahamondes does like to usually kind of accumulate damage and then finish him off towards the end. And Yagos, he has one good round in him. He didn't even have that this time. Bahamondes went through him. You had 1.5 units on the under 2.5 rounds. Then you took some shots on Bahamondes round 2 and round 3. I mean, that's still a good read. It's just that Yagos couldn't get into those later rounds. The Brzezinski versus Walker fight under 2.5 rounds. Low-level heavyweights, it turned into a slop fest. It's just one of those. Alexander Hernandez, Damon Jackson under 2.5 rounds. That one, I was with you. I didn't end up playing it, but I thought that was going to be going under 2.5 rounds as well. Shoot, who got the nod there?
Jackson did.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of tough. I feel like that might be the last straw for Hernandez. I wouldn't mind seeing him go to a different promotion. Yeah. I'm not sure he can cut it anymore in the UFC. Man. Okay, so you had the under fight doesn't go the distance, and Melissa Dixon, Nora Cornoli fight. That was a great play at plus 168.
Yeah.
And then you also took the same stabs I did on Dixon round 1 TKO and sub round 1. Low level women's fights, man. I don't know how many times we got to learn our lesson, but
right.
It happened. Only minus 1.99 units on the card though. So yeah, certainly a forgettable night, but not something too terrible. Looking over at my card, I went 1-4 in my bets, and thankfully Almeida wins by TKO saved me. I knew it was a credentialed kickboxer facing somebody in Dylan Budka who needed 15 minutes to get that win, and I figured that he, with his consistent get up game, would break him down the stretch, and that ended up happening. I hit that for 1 unit at plus 425, and that ultimately saved my night because I had 2 units on Germaine de Randamie, a unit and a quarter on a maybe the squarest parlay I've ever put together, to be honest with you, man. Melissa Dixon and Walter Walker, both at 250 or more. That's crazy. I hate that I did that. And then I did take another shot on Melissa Dixon TKO round 1. I just thought that she'd be a little bit more dominant, and that just wasn't the case. Plus 0.5 units on the night. So yeah, still not something that I'm necessarily going to be remembering for a while, but it is what it is. Now we've got an excellent fight card. We start off the night for UFC 300 with 2 former champions and Deiveson Figueiredo taking on Cody Garbrandt. This is at 135 pounds. And, we see Deiveson Figueiredo as a minus 300 here. Here's the thing. I think that if Cody's chin holds up, that you could make an argument that he has better striking. I think he has better wrestling. His jiu-jitsu is probably not on par, but the first 2 being that he does have a slight advantage in, I gotta think that this is a dogger pass spot. I don't love trusting guys who we've seen their chin deplete over the years, but trying to think. Let's see. Yeah, Garbrandt's last 2 fights, his chin's held up, man. You know, he's taken some hard shots at that. And barring a knockout, I think that this is a really, really close fight and one that is not lined correctly. So maybe I'll talk myself into it, but I think Cody Garbrandt, he's got just as much of experience. This isn't a 125-pounder that Figueiredo is going to be able to bully around the octagon. He has good defensive wrestling, Cody Garbrandt does, so I think he's going to be able to keep it on the feet. And, I'm going to start off with a big dog, Cody Garbrandt over Deiveson Figueiredo. I think it'll be a really close decision.
I want so badly to be on the Cody Garbrandt side, man, and I hear where you're coming from. I think I kind of underestimated Figueiredo a little bit in that fight coming up, to his first time against Rob Font. And I thought he looked incredible, man. I thought, you could tell that the extra weight allowed him to push a harder pace. His durability's better, and it's a 3-round fight, which I think favors his style drastically. I still, despite having Cody not been knocked out in quite a couple years, I still do think the way Font was reacted and things, I still think Figueiredo carries that power up here at 135. I'm worried about the guillotine that he can jump. And on the side of Cody Garbrandt, both, you can kind of say the same for both of these guys. Cody Garbrandt, I feel like he's kind of finish reliant. I don't feel like he's necessarily going out there and winning a whole lot of minutes outside of, the Dominic Cruz fight. But even then, it's multiple knockdowns and things. I feel like his style tends to have to land the big right hand. And if he's willing to kind of get in those kind of exchanges, I feel like I trust Figueiredo a little bit more here. It's a tough fight for me, but I can't agree the line is wide. I'm not going to be betting Figueiredo in this spot. But in a fight that I largely think is going to play out on the feet, I trust Figgy a little bit more there in his durability and his power. If you take a shot on Cody, though, I'd love to see him come through. He's been our boy for a little bit of time,
Sure.
Next up, Bobby Green taking on Jim Miller at 155. First thing I noticed here, man, Bobby Green making a turnaround just 4 months after Jalen Turner did him dirty, man. That was one of the, worst stoppages I've seen in a finishing sequence in a while. Ref should have stopped that a long time ago. And then you see him as almost a 2-1 underdog, or I'm sorry, a 2-1 favorite here. That is a bit concerning. I don't think I'd be going out here and laying the chalk on Bobby Green. Although I do see him on the feet having a pretty good advantage. I think he's a lot faster than Jim Miller, even though he keeps his hands down. I think his footwork, his athleticism, just a little bit better than Jim Miller is at this point here. He's also an excellent counter grappler. There's not many guys that have come out here and, lay on top of Bobby Green and land multiple takedowns. When I look at Jim, I so badly, making his 44th trip to the octagon, won on UFC 100 and 200. I so badly want him to win. And I do feel like this line is also dog or pass. That speed discrepancy, boxing discrepancy on the feet. I do feel like he's going to be forced to shoot takedowns here. And I don't know how successful he is at getting them. So I reluctantly pick Bobby Green, but another one where I don't feel too strongly about the favorite here. What's your thoughts?
So it's weird that Jim Miller's 40, but it seems like he's in a better part of his career than Bobby Green is at this point. Like we've seen him doing really well. His style's been effective, but I do think that he's running into a guy who's so slick on his feet and whose defensive wrestling is good enough to maintain that fight on the feet. And I think that Miller could find himself in some trouble. Miller, for a really long time, if I'm not mistaken, he was like an early finish or bust type of fighter. If he didn't get that early finish, we definitely saw him fall off. Now, thankfully for him, Bobby Green, not really known as a power puncher. Now, you look at a couple of his last fights, he gets the Dawson straight left in round 1, but that was a flash knockout, first punch of the real punch of the fight. Right. And so I don't even think that that's a great, I don't think that that's a fair look at what the power of Bobby Green actually is. For the longest time, whenever he was fighting guys like Clay Guida, Lando Veneta, Alan Patrick, Thiago Moises, during that era in 2020, you were having to lay minus 130 for Bobby Green decisions. And that was always like, I know that you hopped on a few of them. I was always reluctant to play it, but it would always end up hitting, like the overs on Bobby Green fights. That's the way to go. And I feel like, you look at both these guys' last few fights, we're getting round 1, round 2, round 1, round 3, round 1, round 1. And then on the Jim Miller side, it's a lot more of the same, round 3, round 1, round 2, round 2, round 2, a decision against Alexander Hernandez. I think we're getting an awesome price tag on the over 2.5 for this fight. I don't think that Bobby Green has much finished potential, and I do favor him in a fight. So yeah, I think the over 2.5 at minus 145, I'd be much more inclined to play that than I would be the Bobby Green at minus 200, So that's kind of where I'm looking. You like that?
Love it. Yeah.
So yeah, Bobby Green will be the pick for me, but I like the over 2.5. I think he's going to be able to ward off that early attack of Jim Miller and keep the fight at distance. And even if, yeah, dude, that's the spot right there. Over 2.5 minus 145. I'll quit talking about it.
It's a great
moving down up the card, down a couple weight classes to the women's strawweight division. Jessica Andrade taking on Marina Rodriguez. Coming into this fight, man, I thought that this was a super easy Marina Rodriguez spot. I think that she's a more technical striker. She's bigger, probably better footwork. All the things that like would point in the right direction to play her, but she can't get her head off the center line. And right. I mean, that's all Jessica needs. Like Jessica never comes into the fights as a bigger girl. It's always just she holds fight-ending power that a lot of 115-pound women just don't have. And I'm pretty sure that punch is going to be available for 15 minutes, even if she is getting her head boxed off the entire 14.5 minutes. I do think that kill shot will be available for her. So this is another one where it's like, I think I'd rather just lay off this fight. There's a ton of really good fights on this card, and to try and like force a bet on two girls who are kind of in weird positions in their career. Both have been finished a few times, and now, like I said, just a layoff fight for me. I think Marina Rodriguez is a far more technically sound, better MMA fighter. That doesn't always translate though. So I don't know, if I talk myself into it plus money on Marina Rodriguez, it seems like that would be enough for me to play it. But probably going to lay off, even though she is the pick.
Yeah, man, I think I'm on the Marina Rodriguez side as well. I think this fight's going to be really, really good. Honestly, I've considered playing the under 2.5 at plus 130 here. Because I think one of the girls have super high potential to land a kill shot on the feet. Andrade just been finished in like 9 of her 12 losses or something on the Marina Rodriguez side. She's been knocked out by limos. She's been 10-8'd before in a couple rounds. I really do think both of them show weakness off their back, and I don't really think either one's going to be successful taking the other one down. So, I feel like Jessica's going to have to close big distance with the body shots. I think that kind of is a great style here. I think she has a lot of body to hit on a longer Marina. You talked about her not getting her head off the center. And then I also think she can get sniped coming in, man. I like finishing upside here from both of these girls. So I have also considered Marina Rodriguez at plus money. But when I see Jessica Andrade finished in 9 of her 12 losses, I think she's super highly, if she's going to get it done, I think that it's highly likely that she does finish on Jessica Andrade on the feet. So I'm tempted to take the under 2.5 here, but you made a point about there being far better fights on this card, to kind of pick and choose from better spots. 100% right. I'm going to be on the Marina Rodriguez side with you as well, man. Jalin Turner, Renato Moicano at 155. I talked about Bobby Green having a quick turnaround. Renato Moicano wasn't knocked out bad, but it was a tough fight with Drew Dober just 2 months ago. He needed round 3 in that takedown in order to seal that fight. And that's a very, very quick turnaround here for the guy. As far as his chances go on the feet, especially early in this fight, I think he's in for some trouble, man. I think Jalin, especially in round 1, is very hard to deal with. Hit southpaw, the body kick that he has. And, I really think Moicano is going to get touched up here, potentially finished in the first two or, the first round or two. But I do have questions on the concern as far as cardio for Jalin Turner. And, I think Renato Moicano's gas tank is better. I think Renato Moicano has a little bit more dog in him as well. And if this fight were to start getting into the later part of the second round, he does have the better ground game. I think he's a better wrestler here. Again, I think he has more dog to him. I just feel like he is going to have to go through some fire early in this fight here in order to get his game going. So that is my only concern if I were to be backing Moicano. I like Jalin Turner to get this done probably with the first or second round TKO. But don't hate anybody looking for a live spot to bet Moicano if this gets a bit hairy, kind of like that Dan Hooker fight did.
Yeah, this fight probably I have the worst read on. I don't love that Jalin Turner is a minus 260. We've seen him drop decisions to Dan Hooker, like dropping a decision to Dan Hooker in 2023. It's a bad look, man. And he was a minus 300 coming into that. So I feel like had the Bobby Green fight, if he could just move that out of the way and he was coming off of that split to Dan Hooker, this fight's like, maybe Turner minus 150. I don't know, but I favor Jalin Turner here. I just think that if he's not able to just like force his will on Renato Moicano, who's, historically a tough guy to do that on,
Right.
I do see this fight getting drawn out a little bit and Renato taking over in those later rounds. Even though both these guys, this fight was only made like a month ago, both these guys technically at short notice. Renato Moicano on short notice, he can put together 5 rounds. I don't think that that's the case for Jalin Turner.
100%.
A lot of stuff that makes me want to play Moicano here. I just think that he's at a huge physicality disadvantage, and it being only 15 minutes, Jalin Turner just has to win 7 of those, 7.5 of those, and he should get the nod. So Jalin Turner's the pick. I won't be laying minus 300 on Jalin Turner though.
Me neither.
Moving up to, pretty, all these are awesome. All right, pretty sick fight in the featherweight division. Sodiq Yusuff taking on Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes seems to be, like the prospect right now. A lot of people are super high on him. They made him one of the, like sought after rookie cards of this Topps Chrome release. And I think that there is a lot of people that want Lopes to win. And that's why we're seeing this line like this, nothing in Lopez's past, even though he's put together some pretty solid fights, like even the Movsar Evloev, him getting so close to submitting him. But the wins over Gavin Tucker and Pat Sabatini, like those are huge steps down from Movsar Evloev. And I feel like Sodiq Yusuff, even though I wouldn't rank him on the same level as Movsar Evloev, we're talking about the same level of fighter, like it's the same upper echelon of fighter that I don't think Gavin Tucker or Pat Sabatini will ever see. Diego Lopes, he does his best work on the ground, even though he's coming off of a knockout. And I think for him to have success against somebody like Sodiq Yusuff, who is a solid striker, he's going to have to get this fight to the ground. And I don't know if he has the wrestling to get the fight to the mat.
Yep.
So this is another dog spot for me, man. Sodiq Yusuff plus 115. I think that's solid. And, it's juiced, but the over 1.5, like I think as long as Sodiq Yusuff isn't gassed, there's no way you're getting him to the ground. There's no way that Diego Lopes is going to pull out a submission. And I think that Yusuff has a significant striking edge. So before Yusuff, gasses out, I think that this is very likely to go over that 1.5 mark. It's at minus 190. So you're laying quite a bit of juice, but I like the Yusuff side. I like the over 1.5 here. And I think that it's all hype that's bringing this Lopes line down and down.
Yeah, we briefly talked about it right before we started, man. Happy to see you on the Sodiq Yusuff side. I feel very, very similar about this fight here. Huge fan of Diego Lopes, puts on exciting fights, but I think the guy is very finish reliant and been lucky to have guys who are willing to play into what he's best at. Gavin Tucker, Sabatini, Movsar, all these guys are shooting takedowns and things on him, giving him that opportunity to show his no-gi grappling. And, I feel like Sodiq Yusuff I think he's a smart fighter, man. And, despite being up early, kind of gassing out against Edson Barboza. It was first 5-round main event spot. He hurt Edson early, went for the finish and kind of just blew his wad. I think it was a great learning experience for him here. Now it's only 3 rounds. And you're right. I think Yusuff's far more technical on the feet, the far better kickboxer, super strong in the clinch. His takedown defense is great. And I just feel like Diego Lopes is going to lose a lot of his finishing potential after round 1. Movsar just continue to take him down and let him work off his back. But I feel if he does what he has been doing and Yusuff is still there in round 2 and 3, I'm not sold that Lopez has the minute winning ability. And I think Yusuff is going to box him up on the feet. And plus 115 is likely going to be good enough for me to kind of take a shot on the underdog as well, man. I like Sodiq Yusuff on Saturday. Moving up to 135, we have Holm taking on UFC's new signee, PFL $1 million winner, Kayla Harrison, man. And I want so badly to fade her, truth be told. This is a new weight class for her. I do think she's going to be cutting big amounts of weight to make 135. And then just throw in the ability, this is UFC 300, the nerves are going to be high. This is the biggest crowd by far that I'm sure that she's had to compete in the octagon. Holly's just kind of shown me, man, that I think she's slowing down at 42 years old. I think she's on a bit of the decline, fights where she's getting held against the fence. I think even if Kayla doesn't land her takedowns, I do think she's a lot stronger than Holm is in the clinch and will be able to just cage stall her and win minutes that way. Holly on the feet, you haven't really seen what you used to see from Holm. She's actually out here going in, trying to mix in her wrestling late in her UFC career. And I just, I feel like if she has to go back to her striking here, she really is going to have to use the footwork, dance around the outside, use every bit of this 15 minutes. Because like you said, man, we talked about it before, if Kayla gets her down, she might very well just sub her, man. So I don't have the cleanest read on the fight. I don't think I could go in here and lay minus 440 is what DraftKings has on Kayla Harrison. It's clearly dog or pass. I'm going to side with Kayla Harrison, but I don't even like saying that.
Okay, so here's what I like on this fight. I like the under 2.5 at plus money because I do think that Kayla Harrison absolutely destroys her if she gets her hands around her. And you look at Holm's her last few wins, Yana Santos, Irene Aldana, Raquel Pennington. None of those girls have very much finishing upside, where Kayla Harrison is pretty much all finish or bust. And yeah. Kayla Harrison is also not a fighter who's going to want to even test out the striking. At least I hope that she's not. She's going to want to get the fight in the clinch, which we've seen Holm give all of her opponents. And that's where this 2-time gold medalist judoku excels. So I think that Kayla Harrison gets her down. Shoot, after the Marabueno Silva, the standing ninja choke, she doesn't even have to get her down, But ultimately, I think that she's going to be able to get in the positions that will allow her to get the fight to the mat. And we've seen, I think it's only once, but Cupcake Tate, she can sub her. I just think that Harrison, the biggest question is whether or not she's going to have the same type of strength at 135 pounds. And I think it's fair for anyone to wait until weigh-ins before they actually make a play on this fight, because that's definitely a huge concern for the Harrison camp. Yeah. So that being said, though, I think the under 2.5, whether you're playing it like Harrison, if she does cut to 135 and she gasses, like she cut too much weight, or if she gets the fight to the mat, just absolutely dominates Holm like she should as a minus 425.
Right.
So plus money under 2.5. I think that's where I like this because it's hard to make a case for Holm. We talked about it a little bit. The only case that I can make for Holm is her able to keep the fight on the feet and kind of point her way to a decision. So Holm, decision only. That line hasn't been released or anything. But if you could get Holm decision only at around the same odds, like plus 300 or something, I don't hate that because 1, I don't think it gets to the judges, and 2, that's her win condition. So. Kayla Harrison's the pick. The under 2.5 is the pick, and then Holm decision only is the other pick. And those can all hit or void, So I like that for sure. Let's see. Moving up the card. All right, still prelims. Calvin Kattar taking on Aljo Sterling at 145 pounds. This is Aljo coming up after losing to Sean O'Malley. And, I talked with my girlfriend yesterday. She was asking why Sterling moved up, and I'm assuming that he's just giving Merab the shot. He didn't have much success against Sean O'Malley, but you would think as the, most title defending bantamweight of all time that he would want that fight back immediately. But I do think that he's kind of accepted like, hey, Merab's taking his time. We're going to get him that fight. And now we're seeing him up at 145 pounds. And this is a tough opponent in Calvin Kattar. Calvin Kattar is 5'11". Now he is aging a little bit, but it's not like he's got that he's getting submitted in his fights. Now that I'm looking at it, he has yet to be finished in the UFC, and I feel like Sterling has to get the backpack. Like that's the only way that Sterling wins this fight is if he's able to get the fight to the mat or get on his back. And to be laying minus 200 on like one path to victory up a weight class. Calvin Kattar is bigger than Sean O'Malley, and we just saw how much the length of Sean O'Malley was affecting the game plan of Aljo Sterling trying to close the distance. And I feel like Calvin Kattar has, pretty good stand up. I think that he'll be able to keep that jab pumping. And I think Calvin Kattar plus 145, solid bet. This is going to the judges, and truthfully, it's like, the over 2.5 is minus 230. And unless you really believe that Aljo is going to be able to climb on the back of Kattar the same way he was doing against, 5'5" competition at 135 pounds, I just don't think that that's the case, man. I think that Kattar's probably a really solid dog. And after talking about all of these, I feel like he's my favorite dog that we've talked about so far. Sodiq Yusuff, a close second, but Calvin Kattar is that dog so far. So I like him at plus 145.
Hearing a lot of the same things from myself, man. Go ahead.
Kattar decision. I don't know what that prop's going to look like, but and Aljo's coming off of the knockout loss. That's why I think it'll be a really good number. If we can find Kattar decision plus, 280, 350, something crazy like that, I would certainly look at playing that.
Minus 270 to go the over. Calvin Kattar wins. It probably, is by decision, but I plan on just taking the dog shot on him in general, man. I think 3 rounds does favor Aljamain versus, the 5-round fights. I think he had, with the amount of weight he was cutting, he's a massive bantamweight as well. I think 3 rounds favors him, but I'm right there with you, man. I feel like he has one path to victory, to get the takedown, to find the back. And are we saying that happens 65% of the time? I personally I don't see it. I think Kattar has got the more proven cardio. I trust his volume way more. His boxing is far better. You got the natural featherweight. My only concern is 36 years old, a little over a year off after the ACL tear. I wish I had seen him back another fight prior to taking this one to gather a little bit on how he's going to perform. But you get to lay plus 145 to see, and I think I'm definitely willing and likely going to do that. I'm on Calvin Kattar with you as well, man. I'm glad to hear you're on the same side. And amazing that I'm glad it's the prelim main event, but it's nuts that this is a prelim. At 205, we have Jiri Prochazka taking on Aleksandar Rakic. And this is one of the tougher fights for me personally to get a read on. I do think very highly of Aleksandar Rakic. I think the guy's extremely well-rounded. At times, he doesn't have the best volume, but I think he's a smart fighter. He knows when to strike. He knows when to mix in his takedowns. I think he's got a good gas tank. I just don't think he's going to get the type of fight that he really likes here. I think Jiri just makes all fights tough, chaotic, and I think he's going to thrive in that type of fight more than Aleksandar Rakic does. Haven't really talked about it much this year, but the absence of USADA as well, and you've got Jiri as the most tested guy on the entire roster. They were trying to pop this guy, and now they're gone. So the guy's got to be probably coming in here an absolute freak of nature on Saturday. And I just feel like the forward pressure that he's going to have, putting Alexander on the back foot, he's got a great gas tank as well. I think his unorthodox approach is very, very hard to deal with. And he's got way more power to change the fight here. I like him to beat the lead leg of Rakic up a little bit. And I wouldn't be so shocked if Jiri Prochazka finds a second or third round finish. So I'm going to take another guy who's sitting at plus 100, still technically the underdog. As much as I like Alexander Rakic and I think he's a good fighter, I'm going to go with Jiri Prochazka in this one, man.
Okay, so I think a big storyline that's not being talked about enough is that Rakic, he is embellishing that height. I think that he's significantly taller than what they have him listed at 6'4". And I think once face-offs come, we're going to be seeing Rakic almost towering over Jiri Prochazka. Maybe I'm wrong, but I really do think that that's the way that this ends. I look at both these guys' fights and like Rakic, he got the leg injury in round 3 against Jan Blachowicz, but that one's probably going decision if that freak accident doesn't happen. Then his last one's decision against Santos, decision against Smith, decision, and he lost it against Volkan Oezdemir. Mm-hmm. This guy's a decision machine. He rarely gets finished, and the same thing can be said for Jiri Prochazka. Now, this would be a super, you're going to be a tight butthole the entire time for sure. But the over 2.5 at plus money, like I think that both these guys are high enough level athletes. This probably should and would be a 5-round fight on any other card,
Yeah.
And I think that both these guys, like Prochazka coming off of the loss against Alex Pereira and Rakic coming back from injury, I think we could see a little bit of a slow start. It sucks taking overs with 205ers because it's just like that and your bet's in the trash. But shoot, man, I love the over 2.5 here. I think that that's a really good spot. And I think that if you get the over 1.5 at, minus 160, you probably play both of them. And I think that hits, dude. I feel much better about playing those than I do about picking either of the sides. Because even when Alexander Rakic does have a striking edge, it's not usually very clean. It's close, and he just edges out these guys. I like the over 2.5 here, and I'm probably going to go with Rakic, but I'm not playing a juiced favorite when I think it's going to the judges' scorecards, and he has consistently showed that he makes fights too close. Like you can't drop a decision to Volkan Oezdemir and make me lay money on you, make me lay a favorite price tag on you against Jiri Prochazka. So the over 2.5 is my spot. Rakic is the pick though. And we move on to the main card opener in the 185-pound division. Shit, I'm just trying to find it. Okay. Bo Nickal taking on Cody Brundage. It's a damn shame. I understand that they're trying to push Bo Nickal, but this is an obvious they need to switch these last 2 fights. Like Jiri Prochazka headlining pay-per-views. You don't put him on the pay-per-view or on the prelims in that next card, even if it is UFC 300, man. And plus, like, you can make an argument that the prelims, that might get more eyes than the pay-per-view just because everybody's tuning in and it's free. Whatever. Cody Brundage sucks. He sucks really bad, and this is obviously a setup spot for Bo Nickal. I do think that Bo Nickal is going to be able to come in here, ragdoll Cody Brundage, who might have one close-ish submission attempt. He knows that the shot's coming, and we know that Cody Brundage is willing to pull the ghillie. So I do think that that's certainly possible. The odds are so ridiculous that it's hard to play anything for Bo Nickal. But what I'm seeing, minus 115 for fight ends by submission. I think that covers both guys. You got the Brundage ghillie, and Bo Nickal's probably going to take him down. But, you're setting yourself up for disappointment because anytime that Cody Brundage gets hit, it's like he got knocked up the side of the head with a baseball bat, dude. His body language sucks. He just wilts under pressure, and that's practically Bo Nickal's game plan. Just pressure you, and so submission minus 115. I think that's probably how I play this fight, but I do think that this is ultimately a layoff spot. You can't trust a guy with 5 fights at minus 20. It's minus 3,800 on DK right now.
Yeah, 3,800 is absolutely stupid. I almost want to throw 0.1 unit on Cody Brundage just to make a unit back, like out of spite of a guy with 5 fights minus 3,800. I as well don't think this should be on the main card as well. Brundage is just an absolute head case, man. And like you said, has one good guillotine attempt left. If he ends up on his back, 0 get-up game, loses confidence and cardio after one. I like that. Fight ends by sub, minus 1.
If you're going to play something on the fight,
yeah,
right?
If you have to play anything, what is that, 52%, something like that? Yeah, I mean, I would probably say a little over half the time the fight probably does end by submission here. So I don't hate it. Only thing with potential value here, I Bo Nickal by early finish probably. I just want to move on from that fight, truth be told. Charles Oliveira and Arman Tsarukyan at 155 was one of my favorite fights on this entire card. I am pumped for this one. I do think Arman Tsarukyan is going to win the fight, but I think Charles Oliveira plus 400 submission is kind of crazy because I feel like he can submit anybody in the UFC, just truth be told, anybody within a close weight class of the guy. I think he's very dangerous on the mat, and that's where Arman is probably going to take this fight. Just because, I don't know, man, what I've seen from Charles lately, he's a nightmare on the feet. And with his size advantage that he's going to have here, his forward pressure, the weapons that he has up the middle with his knees and his teep kicks, I do think that he offers a ton of weapons if this fight plays out on the feet for any amount of time at all. His cardio is good as well. He's just got the highest level of experience lately in his career. On the side with Arman Tsarukyan, the dude's fast. He's extremely powerful, and I do think he can break Charles Oliveira with the wrestling potentially late in this fight. But, dude, I honestly think round 1 is going to be super freaking chaotic. And I don't want to go out here and lay minus 240, minus 250 on Arman when he's got such a finisher and Charles Oliveira in front of him. I'm going to side with Arman. I've considered round 2 and 3 props just because I think that wrestling in top control and ground and pound is going to eventually get to Charles. But round 1 is going to be crazy, man. Give me Tsarukyan, ground and pound, round 2.
This is for me one of the easiest fights to call. I'm all over Tsarukyan. I haven't played anything for it, but I look at Charles Oliveira's record, and truth be told, he's gotten some pretty lucky matchups. Like, no dominant wrestler has he fought except for Islam Makhachev, and we saw how that went. And I feel like we're going to get more of the same here. Arman Tsarukyan, I hold him at the same standard as Islam Makhachev, and I think that he's going to give him a hell of a fight after he wins this one and fights for the title. You got to go all the way back to 2013 before you find people that were full-on wrestlers fighting him. Frankie Edgar, and he's just able to control him, win a decision. And I'm trying to look. There's no real other wrestlers like Clay Guida and Jim Miller, maybe, and he was able to get that ghillie choke in round 1. So, like, to your point, maybe there is some finish potential whenever we know that Arman Tsarukyan's probably going to get this fight to the ground. But man, dude, I think that he is just so much stronger. Charles looks great at 155 against the type of competition, but Arman's just like a different type of strong. And I think the physicality difference is what's going to be the determining factor in this fight. I like him as a parlay piece. I like him inside the distance. I like him round 2 because he probably will have to endure some decent offense from Oliveira early. But I think that he is just like the way better fighter for this weight class. He's only 27 years old, and I truthfully think the sky's the limit. So Tsarukyan, deserving of this minus 240. When the fight was made, I was really hoping that the Oliveira mob would be betting this line down, but we're not really seeing that, and that stinks. Because I'd probably make a significant straight bet on Tsarukyan if I could get him at minus 200. And we are seeing a little bit of pushback, so maybe I'll get my wish by the end of the week. But minus 200 would be where I played it straight. I'm already probably going to put him in a parlay, and then him by finish, all that good stuff, dude. I think the Tsarukyans the play here. I love Oliveira too. It's just like this is a terrible matchup for him, man. Just like the Islam Makhachev one was, and I think I put 4 units on Islam Makhachev against Charles Oliveira. So I, something similar in this spot because I think that Arman's. You can draw a lot of parallels to Islam, and I think that he has all the advantages that Islam did over Oliveira. So moving up to the featured bout of the evening for the UFC BMF title belt, Justin Gaethje taking on Max Holloway. And, man, dude, Max can't catch a break, dude. Like, of course, the moment he decides to take this fight and move up to 155, Ilya wins the belt, and he would certainly be in the next title challenger to Ilya if he hadn't moved up. But here he is taking a fight against Justin Gaethje, and I'm happy that this is a 5-round fight, not happy for Max, but I am happy that we get to see it, because I think that Holloway will be able to early get the best of Gaethje. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Max take 1 and 2 off of him. But eventually Gaethje's damage is going to start wearing on Holloway. The calf kicks, we've kind of seen a little bit of a downfall of Max Holloway as far as speed. And I could see, even if he's the better boxer in there for those first couple rounds, just the fact that Gaethje's a little bit bigger and he's hitting a little bit harder, just like the Dustin Poirier fight, we're going to see him kind of wear Max down over the course of 5 rounds. And I do think that Holloway ultimately just like too tough for his own good, might need the ref to step in another time here. So yeah, Gaethje's the pick. You're getting Gaethje at like minus 170. I think there's a lot of people that like Holloway here, but I'll probably bet Gaethje if he gets down to minus 160 or better, minus 150 or better. Because I do think that he's just a bigger fighter, probably at a more or at a better time in his career as well. And yeah, Justin Gaethje, I'm not even happy about it, dude. I hate that we're about to see Max get his ass whooped, but I do think that that's what's going to happen.
I hate to say the same thing, man, because you know how highly I think of Max. He's one of my favorite fighters on the roster. I just feel like so many things favor Justin Gaethje in this fight. Like you said, the calf kick. We saw Yair really had success with it. As far as finishing upside goes, that 100% favors Gaethje. In terms of what judges like, who wears the damage better, all of it's in favor of Gaethje here. One thing on the side of Max, he's taken the proper time here to move up to 155. Last time it was like a 3-month turnaround after he put that whooping on Ortega. He turned around and fought Dustin Poirier. Now he's over 8 months off. I think it's good for the chin. Again, proper time to put a little bit of weight on. He does look like he has online as well. In what I think is a high level fight that has a very good chance of going late, Max's volume and cardio is always going to be there, and it's always hard to compete with. So I wouldn't be thrilled about laying money on Justin Gaethje, but, I mean, if it gets to, like you said, the minus 150, 60%, I think there could be a small edge there. It's hard to put my bias aside and bet against Max Holloway, but I think Justin Gaethje is likely going to win this fight as well. We move on to the co-main event, Zhang Weili taking on Xiaonan. This is another one where it's like, this is such a high-level fight, man, and a good chance that it could go late. And we're giving one of these fighters less than 20% chance of winning. Xiaonan's a really, really good fighter, man. She's got really, really good cardio. Her boxing and footwork in this, the big cage for her, her footwork is going to have tons of room for her lateral movement. I feel like while Zhang Weili's got way more powerful kicks from the outside, I feel like boxing-wise, pure hands, Yan Xiaonan's very clean. I feel like she's a little bit faster as well. It's just the wrestling, man. It's just like that's probably the clearest advantage anyone has here, and it's Zhang Weili's ability to get this fight down to the mat. I don't necessarily know how good her jiu-jitsu is there, but I think she's going to win a ton of minutes in this fight just being in top position. It's her 7th championship fight out of her last 8 fights. The cardio's there. She's proven time and time again. She holds a lot of the finishing upside. I really want to find myself on a small half-unit shot or something on Xiaonan, but what do I see way more likely than not is Zhang Weili winning a pretty dominant decision with her top control. Any thoughts on it here?
Yeah, dude. I'm going to do a little MMA math for you. I think Esparza getting that crucifix on Yao Xiaonan and then Weili Zhang getting the crucifix on Carla Esparza tells you all you need to know, man.
Right.
I certainly see what you're saying, and I think if this fight stayed on the feet, both these girls would be relying on the judges to get it right because they probably have similar skill sets on the feet. And I think that would be a relatively competitive fight if this was a kickboxing match. Yeah. But I assume Weili's going to come in here knowing that she has a clear advantage on the ground. Why the hell wouldn't she take it to the ground? And why wouldn't she be able to get to the same positions that Carla Esparza was? I think that Weili Zhang minus 450. I don't know what the the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 125. I think there's not a very likely chance that Yao Xiaonan gets the finish. But we have seen a flash knockout from Weili Zhang. Like, she's not untouchable. Mm-hmm. So I like that spot on the fight. And then I also like, Weili by submission at plus 600. I think that's a decent spot, Like, she's a minus 450. We know if she's
to cover it, she's taking it to the ground.
Yeah, right. If she knows what she's supposed to do, she is supposed to take this to the ground. And, half of her wins are by submission. So plus 600 on this minus 500 favorite seems like a gift, you know?
Yeah.
And she gets 5 rounds to do it, man. It only took Esparza 2, I'm pretty sure. She got the crucifix on Esparza in 2. Oh, yeah, and Esparza got the crucifix on Yao Xiaonan round 2 as well. So, yeah, I like the fight doesn't go to decision. I like the Weili by submission at plus 600. And this is just like, a lot of these fights where you see a super heavy juiced favorite, you got to kind of get cute, try and find some ways where you can, find a playable line. And both of those are speaking to me. So, yeah, that's the move for me in this co-main event that they're saying is not supposed to be close. Yeah, Weili Zhang by submission or ground and pound stoppage where she gets her in a position where she can't move. And that is what it is. If she gets it to the ground, she's making me happy. And I think that I'll probably end up hitting that. Fight doesn't go to decision. Moving on to the main event for the light heavyweight championship, Alex Pereira taking on Jamal Hill. Truthfully, I don't think that this is this isn't a full camp for either one of these guys. I think the UFC scrambled to put this fight together to get us a main event because they weren't able to secure Conor. And, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I've tried to fade Alex Pereira like every fight in the UFC, and this one, again, it's like I really want Jamal Hill to win. I told you all my redemption cards are for Jamal Hill. Like, I got a ton of his stacked up, and I need him to win so that I can get a freebie, UFC card at the card shop. But I don't know, man. I think that he looked out of shape in the funny videos that he's been releasing, and he's just one of those fighters like Jorge Masvidal. He doesn't take his off season very serious, and I feel like Alex Pereira, he's been in the training room every day since he got his last fight, or since he won his last fight. And I don't think that the skill set of Jamal is what I need to be able to fade Alex Pereira here. He can't get it to the ground. I do expect him to be a little bit quicker right off the jump. Like, maybe he could catch him off guard with some of that slick athleticism that he has, and he is super long. And the way that Alex Pereira reacts to punches, he did it a couple of times, like in the first Izzy fight and in the second Izzy fight where he got flatlined. There were times where when he gets hit big, he doesn't have a second game plan. He can't shoot. He can just put his guard up, and Jamal Hill does a really good job of finding weird angles to kind of come in there and break the guard of somebody who's hurt. So there's totally potential for Jamal Hill to win this fight. But I do think a lot of that potential comes early, whereas this fight kind of develops and we see a straight-up kickboxing match. Yeah, I expect Alex Pereira to absolutely dominate this fight. He lands a few of those calf kicks, really starts to get Jamal Hill to start thinking about it. And I think that Hill would have to kind of open up himself to be able to land things, especially late. And that'll probably get him knocked out with Alex Pereira. So Pereira is probably the pick. But if I find like some crazy Jamal Hill wins in round 1 or round 1 TKO, like that's sitting at plus 550 right now. Hill wins in round 1. And I think that there's a ton of potential on that. And you could just bet the plus 550 for a unit and put 4 units on Alex Pereira, at minus 120. Like I don't know if that's what I'm going to do, but I'm just saying like those, to me, it's a pretty binary fight. You get an early finish from Hill or you get Pereira just outclassing him. Whether he ends it inside the distance or not, I just think if it gets out that first round, Pereira's going to start to take over. So Pereira's the pick, but I'm rooting for Jamal Hill. I'm absolutely rooting for Jamal Hill and my freaking redemption cards right here. So
I'm on the Alex Pereira. I'm going to be on the Alex Pereira side with you as well, man. I know a lot of people were hoping for a bigger fight, a bigger name here for UFC 300, but I think this is a great fight. I'm really, really looking forward to this fight. I think somebody's getting knocked out, and I think it's going to be a super high-paced fight here. Biggest concern is the layoff for Jamal Hill, the Achilles tear of Jamal Hill, how he's going to look thrown into the biggest fight of his career here, coming off that injury. He talked about it kind of being short notice for both guys. I know they were originally wanting Alex to headline 301 in Brazil. So I think he was more or less knew he had a fight around this time where, truth be told, from seeing the shape Jamal Hill and things was in just 2 months ago, I'm not so sure that, this wasn't we need you back a little bit sooner, than your body is ready for, just truth be told. I think it's more short notice on the Jamal Hill side. And for a fight that I just see largely playing out on the feet, it's really hard for me not to favor Alex Pereira. I kind of agree with you. He doesn't necessarily react to some shots very well and probably could be at a bit of a speed disadvantage because Jamal Hill has really quick hands, very athletic light heavyweight. But I think he's pretty flat-footed, truth be told. I think the lead leg is going to get beat up. Man, and it, like I said, when he's throwing some of his combinations, I think Alex Pereira is so technical that he's going to land. I watched that fight with Jiri Prochazka back, and the left hand that lands that finishes the starts the finishing sequence there is so natural, man. It's like he knew where Jiri's head was going to be when he threw it. He wasn't even really looking, It's everything is so natural for him, and it's hard for me. It's hard for me not to favor him in what I think is going to be a fight that plays out on the feet for a large majority of it, if not the entire time until it's over. So I'm continuing to let the Jamal Hill money come in, and I might get on Alex Pereira. So I like Alex to get the job done inside the distance as well. I've never kind of been a full believer in Jamal Hill. He's kind of made me, I guess, be, and to an extent, after the fight with Glover, the way he went back and forth with him. But I'm going to go with Alex Pereira to get the job done. Main event of UFC 300, man.
Are the dogs barking for Jamal Hill right there?
I sure hope not. I know your card collection's hoping so, but I don't think so, man. I think we're both on the side of Alex Pereira to get the job done. 13 fights for UFC 300, one of the absolute best pay-per-views the UFC's put together in a long time, man. Absolutely pumped for it. If you're watching, please do us a favor, like, subscribe to the video, and we'll be back next week for the next fight card. We'll see y'all then.
Peace.